So everyone, welcome to episode 7 of Don-Catencast. I'm very happy to be here. First of all, I want to thank our sponsor, Insider, which you can buy with Caten coupon. In their site, I'm going to have the link here in the description. My favorite shirt is this one that you're seeing right now, the black one, and get a size smaller so that you can look good. It's a very much of an honor to receive Akira in this such special podcast. Akira the Don is a British musician known for being the creator of Meaning Wave, a fusion of wave music with meaningful lyrics, which I actually enjoy a lot, and many of you know, as I have recommended. And for that reason, in this episode, we will explore the ideas of making knowledge fun and the goods and bads of music. Do you want to already talk a bit about that?
Hey, how about that? Well, what I want to know is, like, how did you, in Brazil, find Meaning Wave?
Well, that's a good question, because lots of people in Brazil live in their own bubble, as I said, and it's because of Jordan Peterson, really. When you touched, touched some really famous figures, Jordan Peterson, David Goggins, Joko Willink, quite a bit famous. So here in Brazil, Jordan Peterson is actually very popular. He's going to come here even, do an event in São Paulo and in Porto Alegre, where I live. So as I knew him, I just got to know your music. The first one I listened to was the Peter Pan one, Sacrifice.
Oh, wow.
It's a great one.
Yeah, that one's dope.
That's when it's, yeah.
I think about that a lot.
I was in that phase. I was living that. Yeah, when you're young and stuff, and you're thinking about your life, and it's like, okay, it's gonna pass anyway. So yeah, it was vibes, man. And I had a very bad relationship with music. So when I found you out, it was making a new relationship with music, being something productive.
So what was your relationship with music? You say it was bad.
Well, that will really introduce already the idea of the goods and bads of music. That's why I put in there. And I really, for all my life, I was never someone that listened to music. Never knew anything. I never knew, not even the Beatles. I didn't know anything about music. So when I started working out, it was like, okay, that's the beginning of music for me, basically. And I always listened to very funky, dopaminergic type of music. So it was very much just to stimulate myself. And then when in long rides in a car, I also felt very ill. I couldn't read well, I couldn't work, couldn't do much. So I just listened to music to make the time pass. And I daydreamed. And in the gym, I also daydreamed a bit. I imagined myself almost in a Marvel movie type of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
that's very important.
Yeah, that's good. But then it started happening a bit too much. It just started happening. Yeah, like I started to daydream too much, and sometimes even in my house, sitting in bed, listening to music, daydreaming for like hours on end. And then I developed that association pattern. Whenever I listen to music, I daydream. And if I listen to music too much, I'm daydreaming and I'm completely lost. So yeah.
It's funny because it's like a fine line between daydreaming and visualizing, right?
Yes.
It's like some people have trouble visualizing. Some people find it very difficult when people say you need to visualize what you want to be or where you want to be or what you're aiming at. You need to be able to feel those feelings to bring it into reality. That's all big sports people do that. It's everybody does who achieves anything does that. But people find it very difficult. But if you could turn that daydreaming into visualization, if somebody could, because a lot of people can daydream. A lot of people find it easier to allow their mind to wander. You could think of visualization, right, as a kind of essentially just directed daydreaming, right? It's like you're doing daydreaming with a purpose. So that could be good. It's like people always had this whole idea of like having negative habits and having things that the easiest thing you can always do is just turn a negative habit into
a good one. Yeah.
Good counterpart. There's always something close that's in the same arena that would be useful, right? So switching a negative habit of listening to mindless music with destructive lyrics into a useful habit of doing active visualization while listening to music that's programming you to be the ultimate version of yourself. That's not different.
Exactly. That's kind of what I found with Meaning Wave a bit. Yeah. Because like in the past, when I listened to music, what happened was that I did visualize things that were good, actually. I did visualize myself doing good things. But it was a bit too much Marvel Superman. It was always the same stuff, you know? It's like always visualizing myself being jacked and winning everything and doing crazy stuff. And then it just becomes too much. It's just the pleasure of imagining it, you know? And then when your music came, it was a bit much like, it's not that easy. When you're actually paying attention to the lyrics of a song, such as yours, it's not that easy to just visualize something random. Because I used to listen to music that I didn't pay attention to the lyrics. It was just the rhythm. So I was just imagining anything. with nice, funky, brutal sound. In your music, they had a specific lyric. So it's almost as if I couldn't ignore the words being there. If I was listening to Sacrifice, I couldn't just imagine myself beating bad guys, getting a hot chick. No, I had to imagine something that had to deal with sacrifice. So that's something. Yeah.
You have to think about that concept and what that concept means and what that means to you.
Exactly.
When you're doing kinds of work in which lyrics would get in the way, you can listen to that music. But what's cool about that is once you've listened to the vocal versions, your mind remembers them. And when you listen to the instrumental versions, your subconscious will sing along. You won't even know it's doing that. But your subconscious will be filling in the words that are missing while you're doing something else. And that will help that message get deeper into you. It's a part of the psychotechnological aspect of it, is that your subconscious singing along will help you to deeper imbue the messages of the songs.
That's very interesting, actually. Very interesting. And you know, well, one of the things that I wanted to explore that I think your music does, because some of my followers, they like listening to your music specifically for this, is that the relation between dopamine, the relationship between something exciting and a good measure of it. You know, like some of my followers, they don't like reading books. They're not readers yet. They don't have the patience. But it's very easy for them to listen to some of your songs. They're short, they have beautiful visuals, they're very hitting, they have the rhythm, they repeat themselves a bit so you can get the idea again and again. And that's nice, but when does that, what is a good balance? What do you think about making knowledge fun? What if a book was very exciting too, also dopaminergic? Would that be good, or perhaps taking away from it? What do you think about it?
Well, I mean, that's why I make this. Initially, I wanted to brainwash myself. If you're not brainwashing yourself actively, someone else is, or something else is, right? The devil will find work for idle hands to do. Program will be programmed. Wash your own brain. That's the thing, right? So I was trying to wash my own brain. And I knew music was powerful from early, when I quit school when I was 16. But the last exams I did, which I did well in, I just read my revision notes over the top of ambient music and played it when I went to sleep. That was the revision I did. And I found that worked. I've always known that music is a very, very powerful delivery mechanism of delivering things to the being, right? That's why they use radio jingles. That's how you learn your ABCs in the West anyway. A, B, C, D, E, but all that shit. So we know it works, right? And so I wanted to brainwash myself so I would be taking these ideas and concepts. And I've done it with books. I've done it with longer texts. Some things you like, I'm like, okay, say that song you like, Sacrifices. That's one of Peterson's meditations, one of his ideas, something he's talked about and thought about a lot. And you can find him talking about that for hours and hours and hours. And I went to distill the core of it down to something that you could listen to in 3-4 minutes, that you could listen to over and over and over until you understood it. People write to me almost every week about one specific song, Any Dream You Wanted, with Alan Watts. And they usually say the same thing, which is, I've been listening to this song of yours for 3 years, 4 years, whatever it is. I never knew what it meant, but I like the song. I've just worked out what it meant. I finally understand it now. It's unlocked. And you couldn't do that you couldn't keep reading the same book over and over and over until you understood it for 3 years. You couldn't listen to the same podcast or lecture over and over and over for 3 years till you understood it, right? So in this capacity, that works. But just to further answer that question, I have done it with books. For example, you can find I've done a waved version of Dune, the entire first novel of Dune, which is 24 hours long. So you can listen to, I'll move things around so the rhythm hits and what have you, right? They're arranged like a song. The Dune Wave audio book musical adventure was a case of me live playing the audiobook and playing music along with it and changing the music to effect as things got more intense. So the music would reflect what was happening in the story and in the speaking and so on and so forth. And now it's very, very difficult to do because you're doing it live, you're freestyling it. It's, but so I've done that. And I've done things like, for example, I took Charles Bukowski's, a bunch of Charles Bukowski poems. I've done Kurt Vonnegut's Harrison Bergeron, which is a dystopian short story about a future in which everyone is finally equal. And handsome people have to wear bags on their heads. And if you're really hench, they make you carry bricks. So you're not any stronger than anybody else, you know? Stuff like that. Short people have got extensions on their legs, this, that, and the other. And it's a great book, short book. And I turned that into music.
And you do like to listen to it long term, reading whole novel of Dune, which is a very long work. with music alongside it for the whole. That doesn't take away from the experience. That actually enriches the experience, you believe, yeah.
People seem to like it, and people are constantly writing to me asking me if I'll do it for other things they like. I've had people say that they've listened to Dune 4 or 5 times, the musical version, and they would never have
They will
actually
never
read
do
the
it
book,
with the book. Yeah, interesting.
or even maybe listen to the book, because it would.
I feel like you do a middle ground between like a book and a movie. Because a movie, everyone knows that it's more energetic. You have visuals, you have the ideas being spoken, and you also have a soundtrack. With a book,
The soundtrack is half of a movie.
the soundtrack movie.
Is at least half of a movie. When you watch a movie and you cry, you're not crying because of what you're seeing. You're crying because of the musical cues combined with what you're seeing, right? If you change the music, have you ever seen that? If you ever watch those edits of like when people have like changed the music on like episodes of Friends and it becomes a horror, right?
Oh,
you don't
yeah,
have to
I have,
change the
actually.
words. All you change is the music and it becomes something completely different. Sound and music is at least half of the experience. And people wander through their lives allowing people to program the soundtrack of the movie that is their life. People let other people program that soundtrack without even thinking about it. That's fucked up. Tarantino is not letting other people dictate his soundtrack. That's why his movies are so dope, right? He chooses the dope soundtrack to that movie. That movie is a reflection of him, right? In the movie that is your life, you should be choosing the ultimate soundtrack to make your life the ultimate version of what it could be.
Very interesting, because I always had this intense relationship with music, meaning I only listened to music if it was very energetic. Very recently, I tried for the first time to work with music just because Sam Altman said so. Sam Altman said that he likes listening to like Max Richter's 4 Seasons while he works, and he did it while they were making ChatGPT. So of course, for me, it was like, okay, I'm gonna try it. And it was very different. Of course, very different from the music I used to listen to. So I know I'm very much of a maximalist guy. I like questions such as, okay, if more protein is better, why not consume 1,000? There is the line. And with music, that's the thing that's interesting to me. Like the chorus of a music, the intensity of a music. Why not just more intensity? Why not just more dopamine in music? What is the balance of like, how many times are you going to repeat yourself and how many drops are you going to have? That's an interesting one. Because people don't just have a drop every single time. They don't like to have a peak of pleasure all the time. They like a build-up. But that's very interesting. Like the ideal build-up. And if you listen to the same music way too many times, it also loses it a bit. You want something new. So that's a very interesting thing.
Yeah, you have to keep listening to new music because it will dull the effect of that music. And music is also very useful for multiple things. It's useful as a time travel device. If you play some music that you listened to when you were like 12, if you didn't play it too much, you can close your eyes and go back to where you were, and you can 100%. Feel those feelings. I recently did it for a reason. I needed to get something from the period of time when I just left school and home when I was 16 and I had my first apartment. And I needed to get a bit of that vibe for something I was doing for a record. So I played a song that I remember listening to at that point. I remember buying it from a record shop. So I put that song on, I closed my eyes, and I was back there, and I could suddenly, before I listened to the song, I couldn't describe my old flat. I put the song on, I could suddenly see it all.
That's crazy.
Place things, the shape of the window, all this. I had all that. I was able to bring it back with me and put it into what I was working on. So just for that reason alone, you should be listening to new music so you don't dull it, so you keep creating new pathways to time travel, right? But with regards to I too am a maximalist in a lot of ways. And in a production manner, I was like someone like Phil Spector. He's like, let's have 500 guitar tracks. How big can we make it? I always like people like Jim Steinman. Jim Steinman would say, too much is never enough, right? I like someone like Andrew WK who'd be like, let's just fucking stack up 500 vocal takes and create this massive thing. How big can we get? What is the upper limit of this? And then the inverse of that is also the case. How stripped back and we can make it. And it's interesting that currently, in the Meaning Wave charts, there's like going on 700 songs. So we have a Meaning Wave top 50 every month on stream. And we count down what the most streamed are. And we do the bottom as well, which is always interesting. Often at the top, you'll find someone like Jocko Willink. It'll be
There Must Be Discipline.
Was number 1 for a while, right? And that's a big, maximal, massive bass, massive guitars, like big. That's a very big stacked record. That just got replaced at number 1. That's now number 3. Number 2 is Better Than Justice, the new Marcus Aurelius one. Number 1 is a song called Oh My God, Isn't That Gorgeous, which is an Alan Watts featuring song. And that's one of my most minimal ever. It features only a piano and the sound of chirping birds. It doesn't even have drums. It doesn't have bass. It's in verse.
Interesting.
It's completely minimal.
Yeah.
So this push and pull between these things, that's what people crave. Because if you've been listening to the big, loud Jocko, then boom, you go to that Alan Watts thing. It's as much of an effect as a huge
Of course,
drop.
because that's the contrast.
Right?
It's as if
it's
it
the
was
contrast.
intense, because it is intense, because it's...
Exactly.
Yeah, silence is very intense in a loud place. That's basically it.
Exactly that. Well, that's it. If you pull out just before the drop and you give people a chance to go, wait, what the fuck? I'm here. You can hear a coin drop just for a second. When everything comes back in, it's all the more effective.
Wow.
A lot of this stuff, DJing, you can't just like be playing like bam, but people get bored, you get tired, you get knackered. You need to give people a journey. Everything in this existence is a wave. And it goes like that. It goes up, it goes down,
Exactly.
It peaks, it collapses. Literally everything, from how we breathe to how we maneuver to what we're made of. Everything in this world is a wave. And you act in that fashion. That's the maximal fashion to act. If you're DJing, you play like that. You play like a wave. You allow it to come up to a great, great, great crescendo. And then you pull it all down and you build it all back up again. And that will be a transformative, euphoric experience for people. If you just go bam, if you just stay in one place, it will become dull. It doesn't even matter if you're playing all of their favorite songs. All their favorite songs in sequence will be boring.
Actually, that's probably why my relationship with music wasn't so good, because I didn't understand that. So for me, it was just like, oh, I'm listening to too much music, I'll just stop. And then when I stopped, it felt good. Suddenly, silence was intense. So silence felt good. But then after some time, I got bored. And it was like, oh, let's listen to some music. And then what did I choose? Like funk style, extremely intense music. And I just listened to that. And then after some time, it was dull again. So I really, it was very weird. And now I'm coming to the realization, I think that's the deepest one, that music, just like you said, can create states of emotion that are very different, and you can use it as a tool. Actually, what brought me back to music, because I hadn't been listening, was a quote from Nietzsche, which is something like, life is not worth living without music, or something like that. It's in those lines, it's not exactly in those words. And that was so intense. When I read that, I was like, wow, I'm not a musician like you are. It may seem disrespectful for you, but for me, it was like, oh my God, that's a heavy quote. It has some balls to say that. I wouldn't imagine myself saying that life is not worth living without eyes or without movies. Like, I'm not that guy. So for me to see that, and I really like his books, I was surprised. And then I decided, okay, I need to take a look into that. And now I'm taking a look into how music can make your life more productive and better, which I think it's very much what you try to do also, because you're also delivering a very specific value with your songs. Because most songs, it's a bit more abstract. What is the value of exactly listening to song? How can listening to music be productive? Some people have a hard time understanding that. It's very abstract. It's very sometimes complex, especially music without lyrics. What you're getting from it.
Yeah, but well, what you're getting from it is something you can't get from anything else on earth. And what you're getting from it is a tangible intonation of the transcendent and the divine, which cannot be otherwise described and can only be experienced. That's what you're getting from music. That's why people go to nightclubs. That's why people sing at churches. That's what all of that is. It's an intonation of something far greater than us that cannot be described in our contemporary language. But we can feel it, we can experience it, and we can get a taste of it via music. That cosmic otherness, that grand thing, that thing that all the religions have tried to describe and failed, because human language is not sophisticated enough to talk about God. Right? We try.
Yeah, I understand you. Yeah, exactly. The
Peterson
words are not
Snoop Dogg
enough
is
to
called-
express. So you have to
They're not
express
even
with something
close.
else. Yeah.
They're not even close. And then when we come together to enjoy music together, that's another thing, right? That's a connectedness. You have that's another oscillation in life, this wave thing, right? You have the individual. The individual is crucial. The ability of the individual to be individual, to express himself to his fullest, to be unmolested by the state and other things that would stop him expressing his greatness. Everything we have in this world, there's a human creation, is the result of an individual embodying his true individuality, right? To its most extreme and glorious. At the same time, we are nodes in a network.
Yeah.
Look at your cool camera zoomity thing. That's very cool.
Yeah, when I moves with me.
Yeah, look at you.
Yeah. What you just said, it really connects to the music you had. I just wanna, you're most certainly gonna remember it. It's the one of, It Takes Two.
Duality is always secretly unity. Duality is always secretly unity.
Exactly. And they talk about the raindrops and how they reflect on each other and this infinite thing. Yeah, the star, you
Yeah.
exist in connection to the
So
star.
that individual is crucial, but at the same time, you are part of something. We're all connected, and we're all connected to each other, and that's as important. So these schools of thought and philosophy and politics often go in like too far in one direction. Someone will just completely venerate the individual at the exclusion of the network that it is a part of and is very necessary. And some will go in the direction of the network and completely exclude the importance of the individual. The truth is, of course, a harmony between the two. And that's the same with everything.
Yeah.
You know, the left and the right foot must be walking together. One must take the, when you put your step forward, right? That's faith. You might fall over. You might put it in a fucking hole, right? Every time that one foot goes forward, you're acting in faith, right? So faith is this crucial part of being, right? You're working in tandem with the divine to create, and you have to do it in faith. You might fuck up, right? And then the thing behind you, the leg behind you, that's holding you, right? That's that foundational thing. And
the fine line between order and chaos. You're sounding so much like Jordan Peterson.
Where you are.
Yeah.
That's what that is. Just walking, that's what that is. Everything we do in life, we're oscillating in that fashion. And where it's glorious is that place. The zone, people talk about the zone. And I've been doing this get in the zone, refuse to leave experiment since 2018. That's where the zone is. I worked out pretty quickly. The zone is in that place between chaos and order. That's the zone. That's where magic happens. That's where you want to be.
Interesting. Very interesting. And, well, the only thing I can really ask after you talking about that is another maximalist question, which I think is going to connect very well to the music. Perhaps, why not have a soundtrack that's going like at a slow tone for this podcast? Why not you listening to music like all the time? I think what I'm trying to say is just find again the balance between silence, moody, slow, chill music, and then moments for more intense music, perhaps in a productive manner. Like, do you listen to music every single day? Do you like while you're working? If you were to write, would you always be listening to music? Or is that kind of like balance? You use it to help you get in like flow state every day, because as you said, you are trying to get in the flow state in 2018 and just never come back. What does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. I've been in this. Well, what does that mean? That means, well, the zone, right? Everyone's been there at some point where everything just worked.
Just being present, and being yourself. Is that it?
It's just shit is working. If you ever played like Sonic and Sega All Stars Racing, and you get the mode where I can't remember, where you like have the diamond thing, and then zoom, you just zoom past everyone else, and you're not even really having to steer, and you're just on fire. You Super Saiyan, you vroom, and you're in the zone, and everything just works. You don't even have to think about it. And everyone's been there. Once in a while, you go there. I used to observe with bands, like say Oasis. Oasis?
No, I'm very illiterate in music, yeah.
Well, so say with like rock bands, it'd often be the case that a rock band would come out and their first album would be amazing, right? And all the B-sides would be amazing. And then they'd go on tour and they'd come back and try and make a second album, and the second album would suck. And the reason why Darkness, some friends of mine were in, and all their stuff was amazing. They used to play together like every day. They used to rehearse in this place. They used to hang out together. And so they were in the zone, basically. Every day they were in there. They were flowing in this place, and they made all these great songs. And then they blew up, and they went on tour, and they weren't in the zone anymore because they were out of their regular habits and out of what they were regularly doing, and started getting into cocaine and doing all this weird shit and hanging out with other people. And when they came back together, they weren't in the zone anymore. They couldn't do that thing anymore. So what I thought was, well, what if one got into the zone and then didn't leave, just did everything one could to stay in that place? And what pulls you out of that place is a combination of things, one of which is friction, one of which is just not doing it, right? So it's like, if you want to be in the zone of making music, you need to be doing it every day, right? And you need to be not overthinking it. You need to be not letting things get in the way of you creating. And you need to, once you start flowing, just keep moving like a shark. And you use things like synchronicities as signposts rather than overthinking. If you start seeing a lot of synchronicities in your life, it's because you're on the right path. So you start noticing things like that, right? And then you can be in the zone. You can stay there, and you get deeper into it. And how deep can you get? How magical can it get? Right? I have no idea. You just got to keep going. What am I, 6 years into it now? And it's going pretty great.
I see. Well, when I thought about the zone, I really thought about like Cal Newport's book, Deep Work, something that you do in the morning, that it takes a bit of time for you to get into it. And then when you get into it, you do like a whole week of work in 4 hours, something like the 4-hour work week, then Cole style of thing. but I never thought about like being in the zone all the time. Throughout a
So
long period of
exactly.
time.
So it's a place you can break into, right? So people have worked out methods to break into it, doing certain deep work, meditation, so on and so forth. But what if you just go there and you stay there? You don't ever leave. And then
Yeah,
your whole life starts glittering with this, and aspects of your entire being start getting pulled up in the wake and the momentum of this thing. And you're in this place. People call it, the domain of the muses, right? People talk about where ideas come from. People talk about the fifth dimension, idea space, God, the domain of the muses. They talk about, oh yeah, waiting for your muse to show up. You fuck waiting for your muse. You go track her down. Go
I
up
see.
to idea space. If you go there every day, this is like that thing from the War of Art or whatever it was called, right? If you just show up. So if you're writing, you just write every day. You don't wait to be inspired. You just do it. You
Yeah,
keep doing it. And sometimes it won't be good, right? But if you just keep doing it, it will start getting better and you'll start flowing. And if you think of it in mythological terms, like what you're doing is every time you do that, you're breaking into the domain of the muses. You're just walking in there. You're not waiting for one of them to come to you. You're not waiting to be invited. You're just going there every day. You're kicking down the door. You're going in. You're grabbing something. And they watch you. They're like, oh, look, this motherfucker's serious. He just keeps turning up. All right, let's break him out some of the good shit. Right?
I
And
see.
then they
Yeah.
start giving you some of the cool shit. Right? And then you start getting those genius ideas. And you start
Yeah, I
getting
feel
that
like it's a
genius.
snowball effect. That's why it would be interesting to not go out. Because I really do feel like the longer I stay in it, the longer it becomes and it has compounding effects. And just like you said, when I travel, I'm not that much of a travel guy just because I wasn't able to adapt traveling to my lifestyle. So when I do travel, I really break out of the zone. I lose the compounding effect. I lose a bit of snowball just because I sleep another time. I wake up. And when I wake up and I don't have like my exercise bike, which is here, I don't do much cardio, then I just feel different. I just don't feel like myself, and then I don't get it. And it really breaks the compounding effect. And yeah, staying in the zone for a very long time must have a very, very, very intense compounding effect. And what I think is, most people say that the zone happens in their morning while they do their most creative work. And when they do mindless tasks, they say that they're not in the zone. But you would argue that when you do mindless tasks, you're still in the zone. When you have to like shop for food or do some very basic internet stuff that would be unimportant.
You can be. Well, it depends. Okay, so if you're thinking about the zone as regards to something you're doing, so the zone of, say, making music, right? It's got to be the situation where the second I start, boom, I'm in there, and it's moving. And the next time I want to be doing that, I'm in there. And then that zone radiance reflects on all aspects of other life. The more of it you do and the deeper it you are. And if, of course, you then have to do stuff that's not related, but the stuff that's not related, if you apply the same principles, then that stuff too can exist within that world to a degree, right? There is such a thing as a zone of washing up. There is such a thing as a zone of laundry, right? And it's just simple principles. Like, for example, say batching, right? You know the principle of batching.
No, actually, I don't.
So batching is like, say, think of it like, say, washing your socks, right? If you wash put one set of socks every day, that's tedious
Oh,
and
no,
annoying.
yeah.
If you save up
Okay,
all your
yeah, yeah,
socks
yeah.
and you
I
do
just
them
didn't
all
know
at
the
once,
English
that's a
word, but
batch,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Vocals. And I'm doing all the backing vocals. And then you get fucking really into the zone of backing vocal guy. You can apply those things to everything in life, right? So
Yeah.
you can be a hyper productive in every area of your life, and hyper productivity and the zone go hand in hand. But with regards to what you were talking about earlier with not traveling, this is a crucial thing that you have to get over. You have to become what you're doing and how you're doing it. It has to be in such a fashion that no matter what happens, you're still doing it. All right. So what happened to me was I got locked out of the country that I lived in.
Oh,
Right.
wow.
I lived in the USA, and I got a new US visa, and me and my family popped to Mexico to get the visa stamped, and then we couldn't get back into the USA because they'd changed their vaccine requirements,
I see.
and we were essentially stuck in Mexico. And I had just like a bag with a laptop and a keyboard. My whole studio is in Texas. I had no access to anything. I still carried on. I still got that next album out. I was still making music every day, right? I didn't miss a step with regards to the release schedule. We had to basically move country without knowing we were going to move country, without the resources to move country. I had to set up from scratch. I couldn't get the equipment from the USA over to Mexico. I had to restart everything from scratch. Every wire, everything, bit by bit by bit, whatever I could afford.
Because of the activation of the zone was so internal. Sorry for
But I kept
interrupting,
moving because every day I was still making music. I've got a laptop, I can still make music, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm going to have to simplify. I can't have a big orchestra or whatever it is on this track, or I can't do what I was going to do because that stuff is there, but I can still do something. What can I do? I just minimize it. So I'm going to just still keep moving every day, every day, every day. And then I dialed in my fitness. That zone thing started coming finally to the last piece of the puzzle for me was dialing in fitness when I moved to Mexico. And then I had to leave Mexico. I had the visa situation with Mexico. I had to go to Costa Rica. And what I was doing for fitness was I go to a CrossFit class every day. So same time, every day I go to this CrossFit class. That's what I'd done. So that was the discipline of doing that. And then it's like, shit, well, without a CrossFit class, what do I do? Well, I'm just going to do the same exercises, the ones that don't require technology in the Airbnb. All right. So I'm going to do planks, and I'm going to do push-ups, and I'm going to do burpees, and I'm going to do air squats, and I'm going to do, I can't pick something up, but I've got a big bottle of water. So I'm going to use the big jug of water to do squats with, right?
Yeah, of course. You're very disciplined and determined guy.
You've got to find a way to be able to do what you do no matter what, because anything could happen. The world could collapse. So you've got to be like, there's a fucking zombie outbreak and you don't got your exercise bike. Does that mean you're fucked? No,
yeah, of course.
You've got to be able to rock it regardless.
Right.
But that's an important and I didn't, for years I was that way. If I didn't have like my morning coffee and I didn't have the exact thing I had for my morning routine, I was fucked. It was, fuck, my whole day is ruined, right?
Yeah.
Like routines are great. Discipline of that nature is brilliant, but you need to be able to exist without it. That's actually fucking crucial because the world falls apart all the time. Things go to shit all the time, and you've got to be able to rock regardless. You've got to be able to show up as like maximum, ultimate, epic you, even if you don't have your morning coffee, or even if you haven't got your electrolytes or your fucking exercise bike, or whatever. What's the non-negotiable thing that you've said that is you and what you do? You've got to be able to do that regardless.
Very interesting, and you achieve all that very much internally. It seems like you don't want to depend on things that are external, even like music and sounds that remember you from things, etc. And you do it all alone in a sense. What I mean is you derive that sense of strength and duty from from inside and not from like your family, let's say. Is it like that? Or is it like, okay, I like talking to my wife and stuff like that?
No, you're completely right. You have to be able to do it regardless. Because, what if your family is taken out? If you need them to be able to be there for them, but they're in some way, I don't know, they're knocked out or stolen, or whatever it is, you still got to be able to act, right? Certainly, I do derive great strength from my family. It's an incredible thing. It's a cheat code. Nothing will make you level up like having a child, someone come along that depends on you, right? When I had my son, that forced me in so many areas of my life to radically sort myself the fuck out. I'd let so many things, it didn't matter. I didn't care if I died, right? I acted in that fashion. I wasn't really scared, nothing. I didn't care if I died. I'd do whatever. I'd go on crazy adventures, whatever the fuck. I didn't look after myself properly. I did stupid things. I put stupid things in my body. I didn't care, right? Someone comes along, they're dependent on you. If you take that seriously, that will radically change your life because they don't listen to what you say, but they watch what you do.
Yeah, they watch what you do. And
so you have to embody everything that you would want them to look up to, and for them to be, you have to become that. And it's already in you. Anything that you recognize as dope, if you see someone you admire them, that what you admire about them is in you too.
Yeah,
that's how you recognize it, right?
Yeah.
So having a child, taking on that responsibility will force you to bring all of that stuff out yourself way quicker than any kind of disciplined plan, way quicker than any course you might buy off someone or something. Have a kid, get married, have a kid, accept that responsibility. That will force you to be great quicker than a lot of other things will. But just going back to your question, you got to be able to do it regardless. You have to be able to do all of it just regardless inside you, no matter what is going on with anyone else or anything else. That's the number one hack.
Yeah. Well, 100% agree with that. You were?
I was literally thinking about that. In regards, because I've got this Marcus Aurelius record that's coming out soon. He talks about that to a degree. But Alan Watts talks about it as well in that song that you mentioned, actually. Right in that song. What was it? Was it?
Yeah, It Takes Two. Yeah.
It Takes Two. It was an,
No.
But it was, what was the other song where he was talking about a similar thing? It was in Grace. That was it.
Oh my God, that one I didn't listen as much.
It was the last line of Grace.
Yeah.
Pull stuff up so fast.
Of course. That's gonna be good.
But the last line of it, he says, yes.
I'm gonna get copyright stricken by you.
And he's talking about the concept of grace and giving grace to others. And I was thinking about that in regards to how people treat each other online currently, and how people are so quick to destroy people and tear them down. There is no grace given. But at the end of this of grace, he says, what you need to do is, let's see. So you are, as it were, no longer carried away by your own stream of conscience. You remain the witness. This is a very Stoic idea. You remain the witness, impassively, impartially, suspending judgment and watching it all go on. And this seems to be something like progress. At least you're taking an objective view of what is going on. You're beginning to be in a position to control it. But wait a minute. Who is this self behind the self, the watching self? Can you watch that one? It's interesting if you do, because you find out, of course, that this is just the problem of grace. It's nothing more than a transposition of that initial problem. How am I to be unselfish by my own power? How am I to get grace by my own power? And so then it comes down to that, right? That's that ultimate thing, the whole some things are in our control and others not. It's working out what's within your control, what's outside of your control. It's dedicating yourself fully to that which is within your control, but then being aware of what that is and who's controlling, and separating yourself from that thing that reacts and has emotions and so on and so forth, so that that thing can never dictate what is you and dictate this being that we're driving around. This fucking, you think about like a car. You got a car. If you're not paying attention, you will crash that thing and you will kill a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And like this body is even more of a ridiculous thing to be carrying around and driving. And if you're not paying attention to this and what it's doing, you can cause so many problems in the world.
Yeah. Well, I think the most interesting part about this, which is there's also a music of yours. I don't remember which one, but there's one about David Goggins where he's talking about, I want to feel this, or I want to search for that feeling. I want to feel that. It's something like that. And he's talking
about.
You can say it. He wrote a song.
Well, the one where he's talking about outworking the clock and outworking the book. He's talking about, God has got this book. Yeah. And in this book, it's all the things that you could have done in your life. Maybe you could be a carpenter, and a really good carpenter, and you could have weighed this weight, and you could have been this strong, and you could have been in the Navy or what have you. And Goggins is like, I want to get up there, and him be like, whoa, I never saw that coming. You did more than I even thought you could. You outworked the whole chart. That's crazy. Yeah. I didn't see that. I didn't fucking see this. I want to feel that. He's like, that's what I want to feel. I want to feel like the glory of having done what was unexpected, even to God, right?
Exactly.
Take so much control over this being and execute so much force and will over this being that I've been blessed with for this tiny little period of time, that even the gods themselves would be shocked by what I did with it.
I feel like Goggins, when he talks about that, he's really talking about, in a sense, a relationship with himself. And I see him talking in his races. It's very much him beating out his own demons, him wanting to impress the one he believes in. And it's very internal. And that's why I'm talking about it, because it relates to even Marcus Aurelius' ideas and how you said it has to be internal. If Goggins had a goal, if his feeling was like, I want to feel the feeling of having a few children being happy, he would be like deriving his happiness from something that is not really in his control, something that depends on others. But he derives his sense of worth from something that is completely in his control. Even if he lost his legs, even if something bad happens, it adds up to that book. Oh, even though you lost your legs, you still managed to work very hard. So it's interesting that he
does that race when he's broken his foot. He starts the ultramarathon.
Exactly.
Is the limit of the human being. You were talking about maximalism earlier. You were talking about, how much is too much is never enough. Like, how big can we make this thing? It's
but the
Goggins is doing that with his life.
Focus on something so internal, and the idea, which is a very Stoic idea, which is that perhaps we must focus on something very internal, which I think is very interesting of what you said. Because for me, for example, and for many people that I talk about, it's very hard for them to derive a sense of worth, to derive a sense of happiness and of purpose for things that are that spiritual. I think in the modern Western world, people are so focused in self-improvement, like getting a Ferrari, or even like getting a beautiful woman, or even having the American dream of a nice family and a big house, that it's very hard for them to my goal is to impress God.
External, right?
Yeah, exactly. All of that.
Oh, that's external.
You're not really controlling that. That's not in
No.
your control. So that's a big problem. And people also depend a lot, even the more spiritually inclined guys, they really depend a lot, in a sense, in their brotherhood. They depend a lot in their church sometimes. And if they're disconnected from that, it's very sad and it's very tough. So in some sense, what I wanted to ask
This
you
is
was
what I was talking to you about,
developing that
though.
relationship, that one-on-one relationship with God or with Jesus or with your own sense of self-worth, without having to like need an external thing to connect yourself to that. Because some people, they need that. They don't have that direct connection. They have like a wavy connection. And that connection can be cut very easily. Yeah. And they can get depressed very easily then.
Yeah.
But if you have your
This
own
is what I'm saying
connection.
to you. This is like the exercise bike, right? Like you've got to be able to do it without that, right? So you've got to be able to commune with the divine if the church gets burnt down, right?
Precisely.
That was a trick that organized religion pulled on people. Said, you can't talk to God. We talk to God and you come to us. And that was a sneaky trick, right? And I'm not anti-religion. But that aspect of it, I disagree with completely. I think the individual can and does have a personal relationship with the divine because they're an aspect of the divine, and it's foolish to think otherwise. And it's the illusion of the separation between the self and the divine, which creates all unnecessary suffering, right? Hate and resentfulness and envy and bitterness and everything destructive is a consequence of the illusion of the separation of the individual with the divine and of the individual with everyone else at that matter, since everybody is an aspect of the divine, right? So if you recognize the divinity in you was also in the person that you're hating on this week, you wouldn't hate on them.
I get what you're saying.
And they're the same they're an aspect of the same thing that you are. How could you hate that person?
Yeah, the illusion of separation. You're feeling like as if they're just another guy instead of a part of you, in a sense. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, well, we're all an aspect of the divine. We're all an aspect of this thing that we were talking about earlier, that music gives us an intonation of the glory of. Right? Words can't do it. That's why you have to have music, because music will, if you really feel that music, you're like, fuck, that's how big the divine is. That's what that is. It's something in that world. Whereas like words on paper do not communicate the seriousness of what we're talking about here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're on such a different level, because I have been a very direct guy for a very long time. So I have helped my followers, I have helped people being very direct, such as, well, you have to do this exercise. Why? Well, you see, this meta-analysis, this study, doom,
Practical.
convinced. Very practical, but also very rational. And I noticed that there were many problems with that. Lots of people didn't follow stuff. They were convinced, but they didn't feel it. And that's what you said, feeling it. And that's when I got myself to storytelling. That's when I read more thoroughly Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And I noticed he doesn't just say like, well, this works. I trust me. I have results and stuff. Look at this study and stuff. He had stories. And those stories, sometimes they weren't generalist. Those stories, they actually weren't very rational even. If you read it, you may be like, well, this only worked for this guy. That's not a meta-analysis. That didn't have lots of people. This story is only of one individual. But it works so well specifically because it's because of one individual. If it was a generalist story, telling the story of thousands that used that technique and it worked, people wouldn't feel it as much as if it was a very detailed story. Exactly.
Because you're an individual. You're not 1,000 people.
Exactly.
You're not more true than so-called truth. They are more true.
Oh, yeah,
they mean more to us. We understand them. There are things that you can say in a story there are things you can communicate that are true, that are impossible to communicate in any other way.
With reality, yeah. That's a very interesting concept. And I believe that to diminish the unnecessary suffering, you have to make people understand certain things that are hard to understand. And the only way you can make it is to make them feel it. So actually the most valuable skill, I want, is that. You know, and that's where I think, for example, vegans go wrong sometimes. They are almost on the right path because they do show people like perhaps an animal suffering or something. So they do want to make people feel something, but it's too shocking sometimes. So just like you said, it's a wave. You can't just blast a cow dying with blood in someone. It's just too shocking. It's too out of nowhere. And there's like,
how does that make you feel?
Convincing.
How does that make you feel?
They blood a cow? Oh, that's a good one.
Make you feel?
How does it make you feel? Very accused,
on the painting. How does that make you feel? The vegan activist who like throws paint at the person wearing a fur coat, how does that make you feel?
I think it's accused and judged. It's as if like, he feels superior to me. It's as if I'm a subhuman. I'm like a caveman. I feel like a caveman.
None of it's good.
Calling me a caveman, something like that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So people don't remember the detail of what you say to them. Very rarely do people remember the detail of what you say to them, but they remember how you make them feel.
Exactly. And that's what I'm trying to
remember.
Focus. Yeah.
Right? And so that's what they then consider about you in the future and anything you're associated with. So if I just have feelings of revulsion and dis-ease and unpleasantness, and I'm not associating those with, say, factory farming, I'm associating them with you. And your cause and what you're saying. I still have the same feeling towards steak. Makes me feel good, right? Makes me feel strong and powerful. Makes me happy. Makes me feel like I could build a rocket ship that would take me and the cows to another planet if the sun ever got too hot and blew this planet up. Cows need us. They ain't got fucking thumbs, right? So shut up, vegan. But aside from that, it's a diversion from the point that people are bad, particularly if you're trying to be persuasive, right? So don't fucking whinge. And don't whine, don't make people feel guilty, don't gossip, don't be snitching, don't be talking about other people in a bad way. All of these things are things that will make the person you're talking to feel dis-ease, feel ungood in some fashion. And that's how they will remember you. They won't remember you as virtuous or a campaigner or a crusader. They'll remember you as someone who made them feel ick. And they won't like that. And they won't like you or what you're trying to persuade them to. So it's pretty simple.
Yeah. And I just feel like it's such a valuable skill to know the rhythm of how much you can go up and down. A person is here and you want to take them here. You want to convince them at a point that they've got a road to go. And you can't just drop it. And then you have to build it up. Because that's how you build an argument. That's how you build a story. That connects a lot to a song. And just like you said, it's about making people feel something. And musicians have that, perhaps even more. They focus perhaps even more in that than other artists, I believe, because the music is so much a feeling thing. People are so visual. And the visual sometimes gets confused because we have letters, we have more specific symbols. And with music, it's really about how people feel while they listen to it. Sometimes people watch movies very much because of what they learned, and stuff like that, but music, people don't really listen to music because of what they learned. Sometimes they do, but it's very much about how the music makes them feel. And I think that's what's actually lacking, just like you said, how we will make people feel certain ways so that we can take them where we want. And that is basically the big skill. That's a big skill of writers, of politicians, of musicians, the big skill, focusing on, okay, how am I going to make this guy feel what I want him to feel? And that's a big thing,
Yeah, like it's the reason that the first Star Wars films worked and the new ones don't. The first ones make people feel feelings of joy and triumph and excitement. And then you make these new ones that are lecturing people and breaking down the heroes and subverting things, and they make people feel bad or confused or uneasy or sad or like all sorts of unpleasant feelings. So those original things were experiences that people wanted to share with their family. They wanted to show it to their son and get their dad and whoever. And they want to share these sensations together, sensations of shock and suspense and ultimately joy and triumph, right? People don't want to share feelings of dis-ease and confusion and guilt and miserableness and what have you. That's not a thing that you want to foist upon your children or what have you, unless you're really quite psychotic, and some people are. But it's just simple shit like that. I don't really understand why propagandists don't, because they could.
Exactly.
Actually, start from the point of we're going to make them feel the feelings they want to feel, and we'll sneak our propaganda in there. But contemporary propagandists are so dumb, they just go straight in with the finger wagging.
But I think there's a lot to do with what you said about the connection between everything. I heard, I'm not sure of that. I hope it's not like some fake news type of stuff. But I heard that the guys who wrote The Boys, they intended Homelander to be seen as a bad guy, to be seen as like a right-wing extremist. He's bad, but then people love him. People really admire him. Oh, and people see through the propaganda. Well, he does bad things. That's the propaganda.
Myth is more powerful.
Exactly,
Myth is more powerful than individual writers.
Exactly. People can really understand.
That's such a common thing. It's like people love Ken from that Barbie movie, right? People love Patrick Bateman from American Psycho.
It's not so easy. Sometimes you try to make the propaganda and people just love the guy.
Mythology always wins. The story, the mythology always wins out. So yeah, like the guy who wrote the comic of The Boys, Garth Ennis, like really hates superheroes, and he wanted to make this like. So he was getting out all of his hatred for the superhero genre into this comic. And then people end up loving these characters.
Exactly.
And then they make a TV version of it and they try to tie it to all these contemporary ideas of alt-right or whatever it was they did, Trump or whatever they didn't like that week.
Yeah.
And they end up creating this meme that everybody loves because he's so funny and charismatic. And
people feel connected to him. This thing that he feels kind of alone, but he's also kind of powerful. People, it's just like Patrick Bateman. Even though no one lives a life like Patrick Bateman, Patrick Bateman is meant to be this psychopath that's so further away from people. He's so different. But people literally say, what do they say? They say literally me. This guy is literally me. He's literally me. That's literally me. Yeah, but
and that was the movie. I mean, did you ever read the book?
No, I didn't.
I think the book does a better job of the intent of like making him deeply unpleasant. Because like,
yeah, I heard that.
Like that. I'm reading the book. And if anyone out there who's read it, it's the bit with the rat and the cheese. And
I heard that.
Problem with contemporary propagandists is they're just they're clumsy and not very good at what they do. And then the side effect of that is, as you say, the real mythopoetic actuality of life always pushes through and comes out no matter what you're trying to do. And the propagandic aspects will just be lost and forgotten, and all that will remain is the truth. And that is what happens. In story, what remains is the truth. Just like you don't remember the details, you remember how it made you feel.
Exactly. Right? That's a big thing. And I thought about that a lot because I used to merely talk about the details, but I didn't really consider how people felt as much. But then it's like, what are people going to remember in the end of their lives? How am I going to be remembered? What is the actual truth of this? And it's how people felt. So what we're actually doing here is not communicating facts, because we're not fact machines. We're not robots. We're humans. So what we're doing is like making each other feel a certain way. And that's all there is, really. And that was a big switch.
A lot of people never get that. So that's a very powerful thing to realize. We have pattern recognition machines that are out here patterning is what we're doing. And we recognize a pattern of happiness or a pattern of sadness or a pattern of disappointment. And we remember those. And when we're on our deathbeds, we'll remember how things made us feel. I would always act when I was DJing every night in Hollywood at that period of my life. Every time I went out there, my aim was to create a transcendent experience that would reverberate through the lives of those who were there to engage in it. And they would remember on their deathbed. And they would remember how they felt. And they wouldn't necessarily, and I knew, because they won't remember necessarily the specific songs or the specific order or what have you, but they'll remember how it all made them feel. Yeah. Maybe at some point in their life, they'd hear one of those songs or something, and it would remind them of how they felt in that moment and how they all felt together with all those other people. And that's such a powerful thing.
Exactly. And that's so interesting because as someone who's basically more of a writer, I can see a bit how words will make you feel something, but you have to understand the rhythms and how rhythms will make someone feel a certain way. That's very interesting, yeah. Because I feel like
writing is rhythm.
Yeah. That is a weapon to convince people. And just like you said, it's propaganda. If you listen to music that you don't know who did it, you're letting someone like plant ideas in your head.
Right? If all you're listening to is songs where it's like, I can't get the girl, I'm a loser. You know what I mean? What's going to happen in your life? Yeah. It's weird how people program themselves with just like miserable cuck messaging. Whatever it is, like people just be listening to like degenerate stuff or like whatever it is. If all you're listening to is certain ideas, that will permeate your being and that will come out. That will be reflected in the world around you. One way of thinking about the world, we've mentioned a bit this earlier, but the more deeper into life I go, the more it seems to be true, is it's a mirror, right? It's a mirror. So if you think about the way you make things happen, the way that thoughts become things, right? Think what you're thinking becomes your external world. Your external world is a mirror for what you're thinking. What you see in others, when you admire things, like I was saying, that's a mirror for what's in you that is actually good. When you are annoyed by others, that's something in you as well, right? So if you've ever been annoyed with someone, like, oh, that motherfucker, he keeps talking over me or whatever, right? Maybe go check yourself and see if that's something you're doing, and it probably is, right?
Interesting.
So everything seems to be set up in that way, that the world is a mirror, and we can affect it in that manner via what we project into that mirror. But we should also need to be very careful about that, because we will get back what we give. So we need to be very conscious about that. And with
you do
regards to
actively
music, it's the same
project
thing.
things.
Well, we all do, whether we're doing it deliberately or not. We're always
Yeah.
doing it, right? So if you're wandering around the whole time just being miserable in your head and thinking grumpy thoughts and hating on everything around you and talking bad about yourself and not being even conscious of it, you're just enforcing these things, and that's what you get more of in your life, right? That's more of what comes to you. If you're actively and deliberately thinking in a creatively beneficent fashion, that is what you get more of. I've lived long enough to have been able to, practice these things and experiment, and you do seem to get back what you put out. You do seem to create your reality. It seems odd that that would be the case, but it does seem to be the case.
Yeah, and that's 100% what you're doing with your music, which is like passing the meanings of these very important mythologies and stories so that people can, in a sense, reprogram their mind with something that is more positive and more valuable than modern music. I feel like you commented that a lot multiple times about how the music of today is, in a sense, we're almost like in a dark age of music, I believe, yeah?
Well, it's more that I would say that a lot of the music that you would, so remember we were talking about deliberateness of programming, of being, right?
Yeah.
So the music that they'll play on the radio, or the music that you'll hear in most mainstream areas, the lyrical content has really, really narrowed to be pretty much almost exclusively about the experience of the horny, degenerate teenager.
Yeah.
Pretty much, right?
And
So
is the
you're-
rhythm of it corrupted too? Is the rhythm of it corrupted too? You feel like it, or not that much?
Well, I mean, it works. There are certain frequencies that do certain things. So if you combine these frequencies with this narrow band of experience, which is what we've got a narrow band of experience. You've got grown ass men listening to music about like the experience of the horny teenage girl who hates boys and doesn't need no man, and is going to party with her girls, or it's the young guy who's some kind of a degenerate simp who does a lot of drugs. And that's pretty much all you're hearing about. You used to have a much broader topic range in pop songs than what we currently have. I'm not saying it does not exist. I'm not saying that people do not do it. I'm talking about what we're getting. So if you're not actively, DJing your own party, so to speak, if you're not actively programming the soundtrack of your own movie, what you're going to get is that. And you will be a guy at any stage of his life being programmed with the sort of moronic ramblings of a teenage horny boy girl thought monster creature thing, some kind of weird demonically possessed caricature, and you're just getting loads and loads of that. It's quite bizarre, because I do a lot of DJ sets where I'll be experimenting with music from different eras. So if you're listening to the lyrical content of 70s music versus now, or even 80s music, or even 90s music, or even 2000s, it's what we have now seemed to start in the 2000s and then just get really sort of solidified into what it is at this point. People used to talk about all sorts of things in records. You don't really hear that so much these days.
It's a natural selection, perhaps, of what works. No.
You'd think that, but if you listen to the things that worked previously and the things that sometimes work, it's not like, for example, when what was that country song that came out last year? In the USA, there was
Old
a
Town
country
Road.
song that came out. Not Old Town Road, no.
Crazy. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Song came out, and it was about the struggles of working class Americans and the corruption of the government, and it really blew up online and became massive. And if you were saying, well, it's about what works, then presumably the mainstream would have provided us with lots of that. But of course it didn't. It did everything it could to kind of pretend that wasn't happening and keep on
I see.
pressing us with the horny teenager with the lots of drugs and shotgun thing,
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's
I
not
feel
really
you.
about that. It's not about that.
Yeah,
And,
so there's lots of people who are dissatisfied, and of course there are, with the state of music and people who want that. So there's just like Jordan Peterson said, where responsibility has been abdicated, opportunity lurks, yeah? That's basically what you're
there
doing.
you go. Exactly. And there really is a hunger and a demand. And it's funny because, like I was talking about earlier, I have this top 50. And there's like 3 or 4 songs in my top 10 that have got discipline in the title, right?
Yeah.
People been abdicated somewhere.
Yeah, of course.
Make songs about discipline. You know what I mean? It did used to exist. People did used to have songs about those
Yeah.
sorts of ideas. Fuck, I mean, what was that song I was listening to the other day? Was it Otis? You can't run, you can't hide. Everywhere you go, there you are. Which is a very profound message. That's in a disco song. It's just a disco song from the 70s, you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, it's an interesting position we find ourselves in right now. There's never been a greater opportunity for people to express themselves and
I agree.
What makes them soar, what makes their soul soar, and to find people who would appreciate that. Because so much of what we require as humans has been abdicated by our systems of entertainment and education and distribution. All these people who are supposed to be doing things have abdicated that responsibility for various reasons. And some of them are engaging in propaganda and some of them are just incompetent. We have a massive incompetence crisis as well as the sort of hitherto unimaginable onslaught of like crazy propaganda, just like military, beyond military level propaganda. But like at the same time, the new generation is very wise to what's going on and they can recognize propaganda in ways that previous generations were never able to. And at the same time, the new generation has these tools at their disposal to create in a way that previous generations never could, and to communicate in ways that previous generations never could. And people like you can reach millions and be very useful in the world in creating the sorts of people that these systems of control are terrified of, which is that integrated warrior poet that Plato spoke of, right?
Yeah.
You know, the person who is as physically, spiritually, and mentally integrated, who is well-read, who is wise, and who can bench press a tank. You know what I mean?
100%.
We get enough of those motherfuckers out there, they can't do nothing.
Exactly. And what I was going to ask you, because it's a lot about the numbers, it's a lot about society, and like, do you see very clear brotherhoods of that? Do you see like connections for that? Because even though I'm a very hopeful guy, I'm a very optimistic guy in a sense, my friends do consider me that, I don't see it being that organized. I see it as a bit chaotic. You know, like there is this sense that there is this group of people who are unsatisfied with the status quo, that do certain things in common and that have certain beliefs, but I don't see clear groups. I don't know if you're like, if you make part of them. That's a bit what I'm trying to provide. That's at least what I saw in Brazil. I saw in Brazil that there was a very large group of young men and women, actually, lots of young people who had certain ideas, who did certain things, they were a community, even though they did not know. They liked the same videos, they posted the same stuff, they were in a few servers in Discord here and there, but they were so unorganized. So it was so chaotic. And me trying to organize it a bit, make a big community online, make a big server, I believe that was a very big thing. You know? Getting those people there, giving it a bit of a name and stuff. And I just wanted to ask you if there are a few communities that you see and that you would like to be a part of, because I believe that is one of the things that is lacking, just like you said, the most in our system. Something that humans need and the system is not providing as much. People talk about that all the time. How men feel lonely, how men don't have friends, how men don't have groups, and how they search for that in jiu-jitsu, how they search for that in the army, how people who leave the army, they lose their sense of purpose because there people were willing to die for them and all of that. And the modern man feels a lack of that.
Yes, exactly, yeah. Brotherhood is crucial. Sisterhood is crucial. As I was saying earlier, it's that oscillation between the realized individual acting at the peak of his individual powers, doing what only he can on this earth, interfacing with others who are similarly powerful, right? So and that's what you want. So the problem with groups, the danger of groups, is groupthink, and that groups can become hijacked, right? So if you create a group and then someone knocks you out and takes over the group and then directs that group in the wrong direction, we're all fucked, right?
Yeah.
If what happens is you create the capacity for a tipping point number of self-actualized bad motherfuckers, right, who can exist on their own or in a group, and they're fine, and they're completely self-actualized to the point that you cannot sway them, you cannot propagandize them to go against their true nature and to go against God, to go against humanity, right? You can't trick them.
Yeah.
Then you can have groups of these individuals hanging out. You can have Discord servers of these individuals hanging out. You can have, and they can do great things in groups. just as they can individually. But if you do it the wrong way around, if you focus on the group thing first, then that group can easily get hijacked. And that's what we've been seeing in our recent history, right? We've seen it time and time again. A group will come along, then the FBI or Mossad or whatever intelligence agency will infiltrate that group and then turn that group upon itself and turn it against what it was initially supposed to do. And that's where you have problems. So the most important thing I would say at this juncture is for individuals to self-actualize and then to communicate with other self-actualized individuals and structure in such a fashion. So what you're doing is very, very important. And I'm seeing these groups all over the place, and they message me a lot. And that's a lot of them listen to the music. And there's all these different groups. There's the super weight buildery guys who love Stoicism, and there's the super health, so have got their bodies in touch and of getting into physicality. And there's the philosopher types, and there's the acid types, and there's the mushroom types, and there's the Christian types, and the Orthodox types, and there's so many. And all of them have this thing in common, which is a desire to become the best versions of themselves, a desire to usher into this realm, the heaven that exists in potential, right? That can be brought out by the actualization of all these individuals. Something that people, the intonation that they've had from the glory of music, they know there can be more of that in this existence. They know there's more of that. They know that like the garbage that they foist upon us isn't all that there is.
Yeah, I like
and
that
it doesn't
idea.
have to be this way.
If only
right?
you knew how
have
good
to
things
be like
could be,
this.
you wouldn't be living the way you are.
The people who are unhealthy, if only they knew that they could be fit and how much more wonderful existence could be, right? The people who are sort of spiritually lacking, if only they could experience how that feels to embrace that aspect of being rather than pretending it doesn't exist because it can't be quantified with calculations. There's so many. So I think so many disparate groups are united by that. And I see that. And it's exciting because I see so much more of it now than I used to. I definitely see more of it now than I used to. And you're right, people are disorganized. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. What I see happening is like, when I was a kid, all the kids wanted to do is get drunk, right? They just wanted to get drunk, get high. Now those same kids want to get jacked, right?
Yeah, that is true.
And a lot of those same kids, they want to get healthy, right? They want to get strong. They want to get good at shit.
Yeah.
They want to get rich, right? They want to buy their mama a house. And they know that they can. It used to be when I was a kid, like working class boys, the only escape from your town was football, soccer, or be a pop star, right? Otherwise, you're going to work in a factory or whatever forever, and you're going to be broke forever. You go to the pub on the weekend, you marry some girl that you don't like that much, you have some kids, you die, right? And that's what people expected to happen. Whereas now, they're like, I could be rich. I could create something. I could be an entrepreneur. I could be strong. I could have a community of like-minded people. It used to be, when I was a kid, I didn't think there was anyone else like me in the world, right? There was no one who liked the music I liked. There was no one who thought like I did. I thought I was the only one. The internet didn't exist then, right? Nowadays, it's like everything. you can find your people and you can see examples of people doing what you want to do. So it's possible. Once we know something's possible, we can do it. Once someone breaks like, the 500-pound deadlift, suddenly everyone's doing a 500-pound
everyone's doing it, just like the 4-minute mile. Yeah.
Yeah, right?
That's great. That connects a lot to what you said. That people create their own reality. Before someone did a minute mile, doctors were saying that your heart was going to explode and all that stuff. As soon as someone does it, everyone is doing it. Yeah, that's a crazy thing.
We do that now.
Yeah.
That's the thing that we do.
What I was going to say that connects a lot to music is, okay, we might have groups that could be hijacked. Why? Because the individuals themselves are not that strong. The only thing holding the group together is their faith in a leader. And if the leader gets corrupted, they're doomed. What would be the solution to that? Well, they would have core values. Each one of them would have a direct link to the Creator and to God and to the humanity. But that's not easy. The problem is that sometimes people die and they're not able to pass down their ideas to their children. Sometimes they pass down a weakened version, such as you're a Catholic. And then you believe in God, you have the whole relationship, and sometimes you're not able to express the true idea of what it means to be Catholic to your child. And then the child is just Catholic. If the Pope gets hijacked, your child is hijacked. So that is a big problem. Exactly, if. That is a big problem. Yeah, that's a big
this motherfucker.
Yeah,
I
that's
send
a
this
big
guy. Yo. Yeah.
That is a big problem.
And again,
I was going to say the solution to that.
Hence meaning wave.
Yeah,
Well, that's
exactly.
part of what I'm doing.
Tradition. Tradition, yeah. You have to have
Exactly.
your rituals, your music, your culture, all of that, yeah.
That's why they attack that. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. I can put into a record, a wealth of information and wisdom that would otherwise you'd have to read lots of books to get, right?
Yeah.
Or you can get an intonation of it, right? So I'm doing that in my capacity. That's what myth is for. That's why kids love Pinocchio. You've seen Peterson talk about this. This is the purpose of myth, as Joseph Campbell talks about, is to contain some knowledge of the tribe and put it into something that a child can understand, right? So a story like Pinocchio contains thousands of years of human wisdom, things that it's taken a long time for people to work out via trial and error. That's all fucking condensed. Like a piece, right? So it's these stories, it's this music, it's our tradition, it's our culture. That's what carries us. That's what binds us together, and that's what rides us forward. So as these things have been destroyed and removed, we have to create new stories, a new culture that continues, that embodies the things that we require. We don't have to start from scratch. It already exists, right? This is why I've got this made Meditations, the album, right? Everything that Marcus Aurelius talks about in those writings is as relevant today as it was then, right? 100%. And you can imbue that wisdom and bring it into your life. I didn't have to go out and, I've got to come up with a load of cool quotes or what have you. It's already been done. I have to transmute it into a format that makes sense to a person today and works to a person, right? So that's what I've done. There's lots of things you can do to do. There's lots of things that people are doing. As you said, where responsibility has been abdicated, opportunity arises. And there's so much opportunity right now, right? They're making terrible movies. You could make great ones. They're taking terrible games. You could make great ones. You can make a movie like you and your homie with Unreal Engine, and that's basically it. Can make something. You could make a movie that technically looks better than shit they were making 10 years ago, right? You literally can now. For storytelling right now, we're at the point where the music industry was in around 2000 when Napster was happening, which democratized the distribution of music. And you had DAWs popping up. You had Fruity Loops and stuff. So you could actually make a song in your bedroom and release it to the world without the music industry. And that happened in around 2000. And I was there for that moment, and I took advantage of it, and I was engaged in it, and it was awesome. And I knew that it was going to happen to everything else. And right now, we're at the point where it's about to happen to the music industry. Sorry, the movie industry.
Yeah,
where it's happening to the education industry, where it's happening to the health and fitness industries. Everything it's going to happen to. And you were right at that point. You could be a part of that. And then aside from that, there is going to be something new created by the generation that grew up knowing only this, right? The generation that grew up with Minecraft and Roblox and could create anything they imagined as tiny children with their fingers and their machines. They're going to create a new art form that's something beyond movies, something beyond contemporary ideas of what video games are. And that's going to have all of those, the true mythopoetic story of humanity, which we've seen expressed in movies, in books, in all these different mediums. It will exist within the new medium, which will be created by these children. And as Marshall McLuhan says, the medium is the message. So we're going to be watching out for that, because whatever this new thing is that they're going to create, that's what will shape everything going forward.
I agree 100%. I really do believe that the message is what matters, making people feel things, and that VR with music, audio, everything combined will make people feel everything.
Just to tidy that up. So the core is right that transcends medium. That's the true story of the tribe, right? The transmedium. But we have to remember that the medium is what McLuhan meant by medium is the message, is that it's the television itself, rather than what's on the television, is what changes. It begins to change a society, right? How the internet differs from the television changes things. How TikTok as a platform differs from Instagram changes how things go forward.
Because that's the lens through which you look at the world.
Yes, and that reshapes your being. You can become a different kind of being. There's this 100%. Weird idea that you and me right now, we're talking across space and time electronically. We're barely in our physical form at this point, right? room together,
it will be different.
our physicality would be a lot more apparent and rooted, right? As it is, we're almost like ephemeral light beings communicating via electricity across space and time. People are listening to this on a different day to when we're speaking. People are listening to this on a different year. This has been recorded somewhere and uploaded and downloaded, and somewhere in a far future where they're laughing at bits of this because of how archaic what we're talking about is. We don't even exist as traditional human beings at this moment in time. And that's the medium that's done that to us.
Yeah, that's going to change everything.
It's so very exciting.
Yeah, we have hit the expected time. I just wanted to tell you, because if you have anything or something like that, but I liked it a lot. You know, I believe we were able to explore everything that I wanted to explore, the goods and bads of music, the ideas of making knowledge fun, the state of the world right now and stuff like that. So yeah.
Awesome.
I'm very happy. I'm very happy having you here. It's crazy talking to you because I'm a very young guy and I used to listen to your music and I started growing up relatively fast. And musicians, they still have that, even though I have like quite a bit of followers and I'm verified, it's still like, well, you make music, your music is in Spotify, you know, I used to listen to it. Videos, everyone makes videos, you know, everyone's a YouTuber these days. But music, it's not that common. It's becoming more common, but it's still not. So it is a crazy feeling to be talking to you. And yeah, I'm just very happy for having you here and I hope we work together someday and meet again.
It's been wonderful speaking with you. Yeah, it's very cool. It's just continuously very cool to be able to have these kinds of conversations with people. That wasn't necessarily the case at one point in time, that you could have these sorts of conversations and it seemed normal, right? This sort of thing was relegated to the realms of esoteria and very specific kinds of people who you would rarely meet. You would never come across them in the world. Yeah. That we can have these conversations, that people find them interesting, that people can glean use from them. You know, it's an incredible moment in the human story right now. It's a very cool place to be.
It's a great time to be alive. I agree 100%. Thank you very much for everyone who is listening, especially the ones who made it to the end. If you made it to the end, your opinion is extra valuable. Yeah. So, comment, say someone that you would like to have here, and give any suggestions. Your suggestions will be greatly appreciated. Say the word banana and I will know that you listened to the end, and your suggestion will be 10 times the value, because I know that you're a true guy and not someone that only watched 10 seconds and commented. But thank you very much for being here, guys.
Banana.